There comes a time in your life when you realize the loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. That the man who commands attention without raising his tone, who doesn't chase applause, who doesn't need a crowd to feel full, that man holds a kind of power most will never touch. You start to see the difference between appearing tough and being unshakable. Between knowing the words and living the truth. Between reacting fast and responding with clarity. And that's where real discipline begins. Not in the gym, not in some morning routine, but in your ability to sit with discomfort, to wait, to choose silence over drama, purpose over pride. A disciplined mind. It's not about becoming a machine. It's about being so deeply rooted in who you are that nothing shakes you unless you let it. It's walking into chaos and bringing calm. It's being tested by disrespect and not flinching, because your worth isn't up for negotiation. It never was. You don't get there overnight. You earn it. By falling on your face more times than you can count. By catching yourself mid-reaction and saying, "Not this time." By learning that your ego wants war, but your peace wants to walk away, still standing tall. We all start somewhere. Maybe you used to be quick to anger. Maybe you let people walk all over you. Maybe you lived for validation. That's okay. You don't need to shame who you were to become who you're meant to be. But at some point, if you want to be free, truly free, you've got to take back the reins from your impulses. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about direction. It's about recognizing that every moment gives you a chance to either repeat an old pattern or break it. And most people, they keep repeating. Because it's easier to react than to reflect. Easier to justify than to change. But easy never made anyone great. It just makes you comfortable. And comfort, it's the silent killer of your potential. Look, I get it. The world will try to convince you that being loud, aggressive, dominant, that's how you earn respect. That's how you win. But here's the truth they won't tell you. If you truly respect yourself, you won't need to prove anything to anyone. The man who's mastered himself, he doesn't posture, he doesn't perform, he simply is, and people feel it. You've seen him before. That guy who barely says a word in the meeting, but when he does, everyone listens. The one who walks in the room and you can feel his presence, not because he's loud, but because he's grounded. You can't fake that. You can't buy that. You build that, brick by brick, in solitude, in pain, in quiet discipline. Self-mastery means choosing not to fight battles that don't matter. It means walking away not because you're weak, but because your peace is more important than proving a point. It means showing up every day for your purpose, even when no one's clapping. Especially when no one's clapping. See, most people live at the mercy of their emotions. They think if they feel it, they have to say it. If they're angry, they must act on it. If they're hurt, they must hurt back. But a disciplined mind doesn't play that game. A disciplined mind knows that not every feeling deserves a reaction. Not every thought deserves your energy, and not every insult deserves your attention. The strongest people I know, they're not the ones shouting in traffic or flexing online. They're the ones who've stared down their demons and decided to rise anyway. Who've learned that stillness is louder than rage, and patience is sharper than revenge. You can tell when someone's been through it. I mean, really been through it. There's a calm in them, a weight. Not because life didn't shake them, but because they learned to bend without breaking. And in that bending, they built something unshakable. That's what you're after. You're not trying to be above anyone. You're just trying to be above the noise, above your old habits, above the distractions pulling you in 1,000 directions. Because if you're not anchored, the world will toss you around like a leaf in the wind. One tweet, one comment, one failure, and you're down. But if you're anchored, if you're disciplined, then storms don't shake you. They sharpen you. So ask yourself, what kind of man or woman do I want to be when no one's watching? When things don't go my way? When I'm tired and tested and tempted to fold? Because that's where the truth lives. In those quiet, ugly, unfiltered moments where it's just you and your choices. And if you've been slipping, it's okay. Start again. No need for dramatic resets. No need for 10-step programs. Just one decision. Today I respond instead of react. Today I hold the line. Today I act like the person I want to become. Then do it again tomorrow and the next day. Until it's no longer a choice. It's just who you are. People might not notice at first. They'll still try you, still test you, still expect the old version of you. Let them. Your job isn't to convince them you've changed. Your job is to be changed. Fully, quietly, relentlessly. And in time, they'll feel it. They won't know why they respect you more, why they lean in when you speak, why your presence feels heavier than it used to, but you'll know. It's because you've built a mind so disciplined, so still, so intentional, that it commands respect without ever asking for it. That's the work. That's the path. It's not for everyone, but if it's for you, you'll know. Sometimes the hardest part of becoming who you're meant to be is letting go of who you used to be. That old version of you. Maybe he was reckless. Maybe he chased validation. Maybe he reacted to everything because he didn't know how not to. You wore your triggers like armor, thinking they made you strong. But really, they just kept you from healing. Growth begins the moment you stop running from your patterns and start sitting with them. Not judging. Not avoiding. Just noticing. Why did that get to me? Why do I keep repeating this? Who am I trying to prove something to? The more you ask, the deeper you go. And the deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Because real strength is quiet. You'll never hear a mountain scream to prove it's tall. A disciplined mind doesn't raise its voice. It raises its standard. Not just in public, but in private. Especially in private. When nobody's watching, when no one will know, that's when the weight of your choices really shows up. That's why discipline isn't just something you do. It's something you become. It's not willpower for a week. It's identity over time. And it's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't post updates. It just shows up again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because pain is part of it. Don't let anyone lie to you and tell you that peace means the absence of pain. No. Peace is the presence of power even in pain. Discipline is what holds you steady when the storm hits, when the doubts show up, when life doesn't go your way. That's when most people collapse. But that's also where the few rise. Quietly, slowly, relentlessly. You see it in the ones who've lost it all and still walk with their heads held high. The ones who've been betrayed and didn't let it make them bitter. The ones who keep showing up to build something no one else believes in yet. You look at them and you think, how are they not broken? But that's the thing. They were broken. And they used those broken pieces to build the foundation they now stand on. That's the kind of mind you want. Not one that's never been hurt, but one that's been through hell and still walks with grace. One that's been humbled, and instead of growing hard, grew deeper, wiser, unshakable. That doesn't happen by accident. It takes effort. And most of that effort, it's invisible. It's in the pauses between the impulse and the action. It's in choosing not to clap back. It's in getting up at 5 a.m. when your body says sleep. It's in not sending that text, not posting that rant, not feeding that urge for short-term relief. That's the battlefield, and the war is always inside. But here's the beautiful thing. Every time you win that war, even just once, you change. Maybe not visibly, maybe no one else notices, but something shifts, something locks into place. You walk a little straighter, you speak with a little more weight, because you know what you overcame. And it shows, not in your words, but in your presence. That's what most people don't get. They think presence comes from charisma, from being charming, clever, liked. But true presence, the kind that silences a room without saying a word, it comes from depth, from alignment, from knowing exactly who you are and not needing anyone else to validate it. That's power, not control over others, control over yourself, over your reactions, your emotions, your focus, your time. And that kind of power? It's magnetic. People feel it. They can't explain it, but they lean in. They trust you. They follow you. Not because you asked, but because they sense that you've done the work they're afraid to do. And the truth is, most people are afraid of that work. Afraid to be alone with themselves. Afraid to face the silence. Afraid to ask the hard questions. What if I'm the problem? What if my life looks like this because of choices I keep making? But the few who do ask, and keep asking, they unlock something different. A kind of internal freedom that no one can take from them. That's what you're building. Not just a stronger mind, but a freer one. One that isn't held hostage by mood swings, by bad news, by other people's opinions. A mind that can sit in the storm and still hear its own voice. Clear, steady, focused. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. You still feel, you still care, but now, you don't let those feelings drive the car. You let them sit in the passenger seat while purpose takes the wheel. Because when you let your emotions drive, you crash. Every time. Maybe not today, but eventually. The wrong word, the wrong move, the wrong reaction. That's how you lose opportunities, relationships, respect. And worse, that's how you lose yourself. But when you're anchored, when you've trained your mind to pause, to breathe, to choose, you become the kind of person who doesn't just survive. You lead. You create. You build something lasting. Not because you're better than others, but because you've mastered what most avoid. So if you're on that path, keep going. Even if no one claps. Even if they don't understand. Even if you feel alone sometimes. Because what you're building, it's rare. It's real. And it matters. You won't always get it right. There will be days you slip, days you lose your cool, days you forget how far you've come. That's okay. Forgive yourself fast and start again. The only way to fail at this is to stop trying. Everything else is just part of the process. Remember, discipline isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You come back to the same lessons, but each time you meet them with a little more wisdom, a little more strength. That's growth. That's the journey. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see the gap between who you were and who you've become. You'll see how you used to break, and now you bend. You used to lash out, and now you breathe. You used to need validation, and now you walk in truth, alone if you have to. That's the reward. Not applause, not admiration, but a deep, unshakable knowing. I've earned my peace. And once you have that, you don't need to speak louder, because your silence already says everything. You ever sit in a room full of noise and still feel alone? It's strange, right? Surrounded by people, conversations buzzing, notifications lighting up your phone. But inside, it's just static, empty. That's what happens when you've spent too long pretending you're okay. When your life is full, but your soul's on empty. See, there's a kind of silence that feels peaceful. Then, there's the kind that feels like you're slowly disappearing in plain sight. And most people don't talk about it, because admitting you feel lost, especially when everything looks fine, feels like weakness. But it's not. That emptiness isn't weakness. It's a signal, a call to go inward, a reminder that somewhere along the way you started living for the world and stopped checking in with yourself. That's where the real work begins. Not outside, not in the gym, not in the hustle, but in the stillness. When the noise dies down, when no one's liking your posts, when no one's texting back, that's when you get to ask the question most people avoid. Am I living a life that's true to me? Because here's the truth. You can be disciplined in all the wrong directions. You can wake up at 5 a.m., crush your goals, check every box, and still be miserable. Still be running from something, still be living someone else's idea of success. That's why inner peace isn't about performance. It's about alignment. It's about doing what's hard because it's right, not because it looks good. Most of us were raised to chase outcomes, approval, applause, and it's addictive, man. That hit of dopamine when people notice, when you're admired, when they say, "You're killing it." But the moment you build your identity on that, you're not free. You're performing, and the more they clap, the more trapped you get. Because what happens when they stop clapping? Who are you when no one's watching? That's the moment that defines you. That's where discipline becomes more than routine. It becomes refuge. Not something you do for others, something you do to protect your peace, your mind, your soul. When you start living like that, from the inside out, you become different. You stop chasing, and you start choosing. Choosing where your energy goes, who gets your time, what gets your focus, and most importantly, what doesn't. That's power. Not loud, not forceful, just quiet clarity. Like a man who doesn't raise his voice, not because he can't, but because he doesn't need to. Because he knows who he is. And when you know who you are, you stop fighting battles that don't matter. You stop proving. You stop performing. You just become. And people feel it. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. Your presence changes. Your words carry more weight. Not because you speak more, but because you've earned your silence. You've sat with your fears. You've faced your demons. You've gone to war with your own mind and made peace with it. That's rare. That's sacred. And it's yours. If you're willing to do the work no one sees. Because real transformation, it doesn't happen in public. It happens in quiet decisions, made over and over, when no one's watching. When it would be easier to fall back into your old ways. When the pain feels bigger than your progress. When giving up would feel so much better than going on. But you go on anyway. Not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because you remember what you're building. A mind that bends but doesn't break. A soul that breathes through the chaos. A life that means something, not to the world, but to you. That's where it all starts. With you. Your thoughts, your habits, your patterns. Not your past. That's over. Not your image. That's empty. But your center. The part of you that knows, that watches, that waits, that whispers, keep going. And look, I'm not saying you won't fall. You will. You'll make mistakes. Say the wrong thing. React the wrong way. But discipline isn't perfection. It's returning. It's course correcting. It's owning your slip without letting it become your identity. Because that's the real test. When you mess up, can you get back up without losing who you are? Anyone can be calm when life's easy. Anyone can smile when they're winning. But when it falls apart, when you lose the deal, the job, the relationship, that's when you meet yourself. And if you've done the work, you'll find something beautiful in that meeting. You'll find strength where there used to be panic. Grace where there used to be guilt, and patience where there used to be pressure. Because now, you don't rush your growth. You respect it. You understand that real change takes time, and time takes trust, not in others, in yourself. That's where confidence comes from. Not compliments, not trophies, but consistency. Showing up for yourself when it's boring, when it's thankless, when no one cares but you. Especially then, because eventually, people will notice. But by then, you won't need them to. That's the paradox. The less you need validation, the more people feel drawn to you. The more you honor your truth, the more you give others permission to honor theirs. And that's how you lead, not with noise, but with example. Not by telling, but by being. So keep being. Keep choosing the hard thing. Keep saying no to what drains you. Keep saying yes to what grows you. Even if no one claps, even if no one sees. Because at the end of the day, you'll know. And that kind of knowing, that's what peace feels like. There's a shift that happens when you stop reacting to everything, when you stop letting every comment, every look, every delay, every disappointment get under your skin. That shift is called emotional detachment, and it's not coldness, it's strength, it's peace without the price of constant reactivity. Because here's the truth. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion should shape your day. And the moment you realize that, you stop bleeding out your peace for things that don't matter. That's not apathy. That's mastery. It takes restraint to hold your tongue when you know you could destroy someone with your words. It takes patience to walk away when your ego is screaming to fight. It takes real power to say nothing, not because you're weak, but because you know what silence protects. That's the difference between control and composure. Control wants to manage everything around you, people, situations, outcomes. But composure manages you. It keeps your peace intact even when everything else feels like it's falling apart. And let me tell you, that kind of inner calm, it's louder than any reaction ever could be. You know why? Because when you're composed, you stay in the driver's seat of your own life. You're not a puppet to your emotions. You're not swinging with every mood, every comment, every piece of news. You choose your response, and in that space between stimulus and response, that's where your power lives. It doesn't mean you don't feel. You do. Deeply. But you feel without drowning. You observe, you process, and then you decide. That's emotional discipline. And that's what separates the steady from the scattered, the grounded from the reactive. And look, I get it. This isn't easy, especially in a world that profits off your outrage. Everything's designed to pull you in, to spark a reaction, to make you feel like you have to respond right now. But you don't. You don't owe the world your instant reaction. You owe yourself your long-term peace. And sometimes that means stepping back, letting things play out without your interference. Not because you don't care, but because you've realized that your involvement doesn't always equal improvement. Sometimes things are better left untouched, unsaid, unreacted to. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And wisdom isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves different. It's in the pause before the reply, the breath before the judgment, the decision to walk away, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You start to realize that not everything is an attack, that sometimes people act from their own wounds, that their tone has more to do with their inner chaos than your worth. And when you can see that, you stop taking things so personally. You start protecting your emotional real estate like it matters. Because it does. You only get so much focus, so much energy. And giving it away to every trigger, every insult, every petty conflict, that's like throwing gold into the wind. Pointless, costly. So you learn to hold it. Hold your peace. Hold your focus. Hold your power. Not with a clenched fist, but with calm awareness. Knowing you could lose it, but choosing not to. That's strength. And the more you practice that, the more unshakable you become. Life still throws storms at you. People still disappoint you. Plans still fall apart. But you stay anchored. You feel it, but you're not consumed by it. You adjust, but you're not broken by it. That's what emotional detachment gives you. The space to breathe, to think clearly, to choose wisely, to act deliberately. You don't just react to life anymore, you respond on your terms. And that response? That's where real power lives. In the pause, in the breath, in the space where most people panic. But you stay still, not because you don't care, but because you've trained yourself to care wisely, to care without crumbling, to love without losing yourself, to engage without becoming entangled. That's the version of you the world needs, and the one you've been waiting to meet. There comes a point where you stop chasing people, not out of bitterness, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that peace costs too much to keep renting it out to anyone who brings chaos. That's when something shifts. You start choosing yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a necessary way. Because after enough hurt, enough waiting, enough trying to be enough for people who never see you, you realize something powerful. You were never meant to be earned. You were meant to be recognized, and that recognition, it starts with you. See, we're taught to believe that respect comes from being loud, from showing up strong, dominant, in control. But real self-respect, it's silent. It's built in the moments no one sees. When you say no to things that feel wrong, even if they come dressed as opportunities. When you walk away from someone you care about because deep down, you know you've been shrinking just to fit their comfort zone. That's not easy. That takes guts. That takes a kind of strength that isn't rewarded in the short term. But long term, that's where the magic happens. Because when you start honoring your own standards, not just in what you expect from others, but in how you show up, the whole world starts to adjust. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gradually, energetically. You begin to attract different kinds of people, calmer situations, clearer outcomes. And it's not luck, it's alignment. The truth is, when you stop abandoning yourself for temporary comfort, the discomfort starts to work for you. It stretches you, refines you, shapes you into someone who doesn't beg to be chosen, because you already chose yourself. That choice? It's the beginning of everything. It changes the way you walk into rooms. You're no longer looking around wondering if you belong, because you bring your belonging with you. It's in your posture, your tone, your presence. You're not trying to convince anyone. You're simply being, and that's enough. But here's the thing they don't tell you. Self-respect comes with loneliness. There will be seasons where the people who used to love your weakness will resent your strength, where your silence feels threatening, where your boundaries are seen as rejection. And in those moments, it's tempting to fold, to go back to the version of you that was easier to digest, less opinionated, more agreeable. But don't. Hold your line. Because that old version of you, it was never really loved, just tolerated. And tolerance is not love. Tolerance is quiet resentment with a polite face. Real love, real connection, it meets you where you stand, not where you shrink. So stand tall, even if you're standing alone, even if your hands are shaking, even if no one claps. Because choosing self-respect over people-pleasing is a quiet revolution. And most people won't understand it until years later. But that's okay. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the version of you that cried quietly when no one was watching. For the version that said yes when everything inside screamed no. For the version that sat in a crowded room, wondering why no one could see you. You see you now. And when you do, really do, you stop trying to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop watering down your truth to make it easier for others to swallow. You stop performing. You just live, unapologetically, authentically, freely, and yeah, some people will walk away. Let them. That's not loss. That's alignment. That's space clearing for people who don't just like the idea of you, but love the real you. The one who sets standards, who owns their mistakes, who chooses depth over attention, silence over noise, peace over popularity. You'll notice something else, too. The more you respect yourself, the less interested you become in being understood by everyone. You realize that peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real, from making decisions that sit right with your soul, even if they confuse the world. And the more you do that, the stronger you get. Not louder, not meaner, just clearer, calmer. You stop trying to prove and start practicing presence. You stop chasing closure from people who gave you chaos. You stop texting long paragraphs trying to be heard because you realize silence says enough. That's power. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't chase, the kind that just is. And when you carry that, you don't need to demand respect. You command it, quietly, with how you move, with what you tolerate, with what you no longer entertain. You become the message, not the messenger. You live in a way that speaks for itself. Life isn't gentle with everyone. Some of us get tossed in the fire earlier than we're ready. And the truth is, we don't always get to choose what happens to us. But we always choose how we respond. That's where strength begins. Not in pretending everything's fine. Not in hiding your pain behind a smile. But in standing up again, even when the world gave you every reason to stay down. Mental strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to flex. It doesn't beg for applause. It's quiet. It's steady. It's what keeps you moving when your heart is tired and your mind's full of reasons to quit. Some people wait their whole life for things to get easier. But here's what they never tell you. Life doesn't get easier. You get stronger. You learn to carry more, to break less, to recover faster. You stop wasting time asking why me and start asking what now. You stop fearing hard days because you've survived worse. And that's not just strength, that's wisdom. That's the kind of quiet power you earn through struggle, through nights no one saw, through doubts you had to silence alone. That strength, it doesn't show up all at once. It's built slowly, in the moments when you keep going, even when you're not sure it's working. Some people think being strong means being unaffected, untouchable, cold. But that's not strength. That's numbness. Real strength is feeling everything and still choosing to show up. It's crying and still answering the call. It's hurting and still doing what needs to be done. It's knowing you could fall apart, but deciding, not today, not when it matters. You learn that pressure isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. The weight you're carrying, it's not there to crush you, it's there to shape you, to reveal parts of you that comfort never could. No one grows from ease. We grow from resistance, from tension, from the stretch of our own limits. That's how confidence is built. Not through compliments, but through survival. You look back and realize, I've been through worse than this. And that memory becomes armor. That pain becomes clarity. That past becomes fuel. You stop needing the world to go easy on you. You just ask it to get out of your way. And you stop apologizing for taking up space. Because you know what it cost you to be here, to still be standing, to still be choosing effort over escape. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your resilience. You just keep showing up. And that consistency speaks for itself. Eventually, people will ask how you stay so grounded, so focused, so calm under pressure. And you'll smile. Not because it was easy, but because you earned it. You trained for this, not in some perfect routine, but in real life, in chaos, in heartbreak, in failure. That's where mental strength is forged, in the places no one claps for, in the battles no one knew you were fighting. And what's built there, It's unshakable because it's not based on motivation or luck or comfort. It's based on principle, on values, on a decision you made to be the kind of person who doesn't fold even when life doesn't go as planned. That kind of strength, it's not pretty. It looks like getting up after 3 hours of sleep, like going to work with tears still drying, like making hard calls when your voice shakes. But it's real, and it's rare, and it's what keeps your life from falling apart. Not because everything's perfect, but because you're stable, because you've become your own anchor. You stop needing the world to hold you. You learn how to hold yourself. And from that place, you can hold others too. You can give support not because you have extra, but because you've trained to stay steady, even in the storm. So if life feels heavy right now, good, not because you deserve pain, but because pressure is proof you're being shaped for something bigger than comfort, something deeper than ease. And on the other side of it, you won't be the same. You'll be better, not in a loud way, but in a grounded, rooted way. The kind of strength that doesn't break with the wind. The kind of presence that doesn't demand respect, it just carries it. And one day, someone will look at you and say, "I don't know how you do it." And you'll smile again, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Mental strength isn't about being invincible. It's about being human and choosing to keep going anyway. Life doesn't hand out exemptions. Everyone gets their share of storms. But not everyone learns to dance in the rain. Resilience isn't built in the sunshine. It's forged in the downpour, when the skies are darkest and the winds howl the loudest. It's in those moments, when everything feels like it's falling apart, that you discover what you're truly made of. You see, strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and choosing to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, stronger than before. It's about facing the chaos and saying, "I won't let this define me." Because life will test you. It will push you to your limits and then some. But within you lies a well of resilience deeper than you know. Every challenge you've faced, every obstacle you've overcome, has prepared you for this moment. You've been training for this your whole life. Remember, diamonds are formed under pressure. It's the heat and the weight that transform carbon into something precious. Similarly, it's the trials and tribulations that shape you into the person you're meant to be. So when life gets tough, and it will, dig deep. Tap into that inner strength. Remind yourself of all the times you've faced adversity and come out stronger. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And experience is a powerful teacher. It teaches you that setbacks are setups for comebacks. That failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone towards it. That every no brings you closer to a yes. So embrace the journey with all its ups and downs. Trust that you're exactly where you need to be. And know that no matter what, you've got this. Because within you lies a strength that's unbreakable, a resilience that's unshakable, and a spirit that's unstoppable. And most of the battles you're fighting aren't even with other people. They're with old versions of yourself, the impulsive you, the reactive you, the wounded you. And it's not about hating those parts. It's about integrating them, understanding them, choosing to grow beyond them. That's healing. That's strength. That's leadership. Starting with leading yourself. And some days that leadership looks like doing nothing. Like not clapping back. Like not sending the message. Like letting it pass. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to not need the last word. You realize peace isn't something you find. It's something you build. Brick by brick. Choice by choice. Moment by moment. Every time you stay calm when it's hard, you lay another brick. And the longer you build, the more unshakable it becomes.